Ever since credit card debt passed $1 trillion here in the United States, I've been tracking this semi-regularly here on the channel, and lo and behold, it just hit yet another new record high. As of the end of the second quarter of 2024, American credit card debt is now sitting at $1.14 trillion, guys, which means that just since last year, when it just crossed the threshold of 1 trillion, it has gone up an additional $140 billion in the span of a year. This problem is becoming so bad and so prevalent that now 40% of credit card holders are saying that they have maxed out or come close to maxing out a credit card since the Fed started raising interest rates in the middle of 2022. But universally, everybody who says that they have maxed out a credit card since then have blamed it on the higher cost of living. Some other reasons that people cite for having to max out a credit card are things like a job loss or income loss, emergency expense, medical costs, or just too much discretionary spending I can't control spending. But it seems like most people are doing it out of necessity, not because they just can't control their spending habits. You know, guys, this is directly one of those situations where you can't just continue to have the cost of living go up and the wages not keep up and somehow expect people to just pay all the bills and be able to just keep affording things. You know, people are turning to credit cards to be able to afford this stuff. They're turning to personal loans to afford this stuff, but that can only go on for so long. Right now we have the average balance for credit card customers up 4.8% year over year, and it's at a staggering $6,329 is the average balance people are carrying right now. And this is all coinciding with a moment in time when credit card interest rates are basically at all-time record highs. I have shown you guys different credit cards that people are holding right now that are charging north of 30% interest rates, but the average is in the mid-20s. Even the people who are not maxing out credit cards, you still have half of people that have a credit card that carry a balance month to month right now, which means half of the people that have a credit card are paying north of 20% interest on something that they can't afford or wish they could afford and bought anyways. And according to some data from Bankrate, the aggregate credit card utilization rate in the United States as of August 2024 is sitting at 21%. But what all this shows is people are living a life that they can't afford right now. Whatever the excess they can afford is going on the credit card, and no one seems to care. No one seems to bat an eye. In fact, maybe that'll be the next thing that the government comes in and says, oh yeah, we can just do a mass forgiveness of people that are too far into credit card debt. It says here that Gen Xers in their 40s and 50s are the most likely age group of people to have a maxed out credit card, and they say 27% of Gen Xers have maxed out their credit cards compared to 23% of millennials and only 17% of baby boomers. They say Gen Z are the least likely ones to have maxed out a credit card. Well, of course not. They're probably still living at home with mom and dad. Getting into credit card debt is very easy. Getting out, well, the system's set up so that way we don't. If you're struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills, you need to check out PDS Debt. So for example, if you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, PDS has solutions for you. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies, and there is no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit is accepted. You know, when I first moved to Miami, I ended up getting into quite a bit of credit card debt myself because I had to use my credit cards to live for a little while when I was transitioning from working a job to working for myself as a real estate agent. And it took me the better part of a decade to get out of that debt. However, PDS has customized options for anybody struggling with credit cards, personal loans, or anything like that. PDS will also try to work with you and figure out your specific scenario and help provide alternative solutions to becoming debt-free. And I always talk to people on this channel about getting out of debt and saving your money, guys, so stop waiting and start saving your money today. Get a free debt analysis right now at pdsdebt.com/Bordenero. It only takes a few seconds. That's pdsdebt.com/Bordenero, pdsdebt.com/Bordenero. But the thing is, guys, maxing out your credit cards does a couple of things. First of all, it lowers your credit score pretty substantially because that sends out a red flag to all of the credit tracking agencies that, hey, wait a minute, this person's probably a higher credit risk than we would like to have, because otherwise they wouldn't be maxing out their credit card. And also, people who max out their credit cards are far more likely to become delinquent in the future, meaning that they just don't pay the bill. And delinquency rates on credit cards have already been rising. And if more people are starting to max out credit cards and those people are more likely to become delinquent, then we can reasonably guess that delinquencies on credit cards are going to continue to rise for the foreseeable future. Now, one thing that gave me the idea that maybe there will be some sort of debt forgiveness in the future is because of all of the recent behavior from the federal government. You know, during the pandemic, they put pretty much all forms of mortgage and rent payments on hold, even credit card debt too for a lot of people. So people didn't have to pay hardly any bills during this time. And once that was all over with, then Biden came out with the student loan forgiveness program, trying to give people forgiveness on that. So what's next? Well, I'll tell you what's next. This is an update on Hurricane Milton. We all know that there was a lot of homes that were damaged from the storm, and it was just announced there's going to be FHA foreclosure moratoriums, as well as Freddie Mac mortgage relief options. HUD just announced a 90-day moratorium on foreclosures of FHA insured mortgages, as well as foreclosures of mortgages to Native American borrowers. There is also a 90-day extension granted automatically for home equity conversion mortgages. Freddie Mac announced that they're going to be suspending foreclosures through forbearance on mortgage payments for up to 12 months and waiving assessments of penalties or late fees against borrowers with disaster damaged homes. Now, to get something straight, guys, I am not saying that people that have seen their homes torn apart from Hurricane Milton should be losing their homes. That's not what I'm saying here. But I do want to highlight the fact that the federal government will come in with any chance they get now, whenever there's some sort of an emergency, and put debt payments on hold. They've already been proven to do this during the pandemic, and now the most recently with the hurricane. And I think this is dangerous for a few different reasons. The first reason is because you get people conditioned to not having to pay their bills for one reason or another, regardless of the state of emergency or level of emergency, right? And like in this case with Freddie Mac, with a forbearance for 12 months, when you're in a forbearance, you're still accumulating interest every single month. So when those people go ahead and start paying their mortgage again, their balance is actually going to be higher than when they stopped paying the mortgage. So it's a double-edged sword for people. That sounds like relief at the moment, but all it really does is push them further into debt. If they really wanted to help, they should just be forgiving the debt, right? Just like they did with the student loan forgiveness. But all they're doing is making it so you're not going to have to worry about losing your house to foreclosure and saddle you up with a little bit more debt in the meantime. But besides getting people used to not paying their bills, the other thing that's dangerous about this is that they're using debt payments as leverage over people's heads. And they use it for different political motivations, whatever that may be, usually getting reelected in some form or another. And all this debt is somehow forgiven or postponed, but how are we paying for it? Because we can't even pay the bills we already have right now in this country. And so what it does is it adds pressure to the national debt and increases deficit spending in this country, which is the last thing that we need. But somehow people fall for it every single time and think that somehow they're getting a deal when these things happen. And the worst part is all of these programs, when they come out, they're disguised as like a way to help you, right? It looks like, oh, that's great. They're letting us not pay for a little while since our home is in shambles and not even livable or whatever. And it does sound like a great thing, but that should be coming directly from your lender. The government shouldn't be involved in stuff like that. If your lender wants to help you out and give you a leg up, that's their call. And speaking of real estate, one of my viewers sent me over this crazy listing in Texas that he was like in shock of what they're doing with the price of this property. And I've seen versions of this before, but never to this extreme, and I'll show you what I mean. So this house they listed back in August this year for $1,750,000, had it listed for a couple weeks, dropped the price, didn't work, had it listed a few more weeks, dropped the price again, didn't work. So then a month later, in October, They dropped the price from $1,599,000 down to $599,000, guys. Then they increased the price to $999,000 and then back up to $1,399,000. How insane is that? Now, it's clear what they were trying to do. They were trying to spark interest in the property, get a bunch of people through the door, and make people believe that they might be able to get this, $1.5 million house for well under $1 million, which clearly was never going to happen. I've seen different listings in Miami do stuff like this before, but never to this extreme. And to be honest, whenever you see stuff like this is a sign of a very unprofessional real estate agent, guys. I don't think there's anything wrong with dropping the price slightly below market value to drum up business and get a few offers. But when you drop it this low with never having an intention to sell the house that cheap, it's very misleading and deceiving, and shows whoever's listing this house is an amateur. So just a heads up, if you ever run into a real estate agent that wants to sell houses like this, or you see they have other listings where they've performed these sort of shenanigans, just make sure you look somewhere else and hire somebody different. And as always, if you ever need a recommendation for either a seller's agent or a buyer's agent, I always got your back on that. I have a link down in the description of all of my videos. I can get you set up with a real estate agent anywhere in the United States completely for free. And this video is going to be just a series of random stories here in case you can't tell, but the next one is about the tech industry. One of my viewers, Scott, works in the tech industry, and he brought a few things to my attention that I thought were interesting that I thought I would share here on the channel. He says he works for a tech company that actually saw a 50% drop in revenue this year. He said that employees have taken huge pay cuts and temporary furloughs to keep their jobs. And this is something I didn't know, but apparently tech companies usually pay relatively low salaries, but high bonuses that can be raised or lowered depending on how good business is. He says it's not unusual to see a salary structure where the bonuses are equal to the base salary, so companies usually talk about total compensation instead of just salary alone. But the problem is they might report that workers are taking a 10% pay cut in order to tighten up the belt of the company, but the reality is that these workers are not receiving bonuses, so they're actually taking a 30 to 50% cut in their net take-home pay. I find this interesting because you hear a lot of people say, well, I'd rather take that 10% pay cut or maybe even a 20% pay cut in order to work from home and not have to go to the office anymore. But if that includes losing bonuses and things like that too, some people are losing far more than just 10%. He also gave me an interesting insight to show, depending on your season in life, some people are just doing fine with all of this right now and other people are struggling, guys, because he's up in New York and he knows co-workers and people there that have owned their house for the last 15 or 20 years. The rest of the people are living in rentals up there, and these people who have owned homes for the last 15 or 20 years are in a-okay condition, even in the current state of this economy. It's like, yeah, whatever. But people who saw their rents go up double or triple over the past 4 years are completely struggling right now. He even knows a guy that works in finance that funds buy now, pay later loans, and they say business is booming right now, and of course the economy is fine. Which is funny because, buy now, pay later loans people wouldn't be taking, just like the credit card loans we talked about earlier, if they actually had the money. That's like me walking in the store to buy a TV, even though I have the money in my pocket right now to buy that TV, but buying it with buy now, pay later. Why on earth would I do that? I wouldn't. I don't want to get involved with more paperwork and have another company checking my credit and all of this. I'm just going to buy the TV. I would assume most people would do the same. Here in California, Phillips 66 just announced on Wednesday that it plans to shut down a Los Angeles area refinery by the end of 2025, citing market concerns. Just this one refinery alone accounts for 8% of California's refining capacity. They say this plant closure will impact 600 employees and 300 contractors who help operate the refinery. But the point of sharing this is just another instance of how a state like California, right? They have the most expensive gas prices in the nation, maybe except for Hawaii, and they even make a lot of their own gas here, or all of it, I think, and you're seeing a plant close down right now. Just another sign that things are going great in the energy business. These guys went all out for Halloween. Very cool. Here's another great example of government overreach. One of my viewers sent me this story out of New Zealand, and what it is it's a story about restaurants that have sidewalk cafes. So the way they have these sidewalk cafes set up in Queenstown, New Zealand, the restaurant is supposed to pay 30% of the value of the indoor rent in order to have the sidewalk cafe operational. So I talked to one business owner over there who's been paying $3,200 a year for the past 5 years, and now his fee to have the cafe open is going to be up to $51,000 a year, guys. We're talking going from $3,200 a year to $51,000 a year to do everything the same. You're not getting extra customers, you're not getting extra business, not increasing prices, nothing. They just want all that extra money just to keep your sidewalk cafe operating. And here's the crazy thing. I don't know much about New Zealand or Queenstown, but they say that for part of the year it's very cold and windy, and they can't even really operate the sidewalk cafe to full capacity, but they still got to pay these egregious fees to actually have one at all. You know, when I see stuff like this happen, it almost seems like local governments are getting so greedy and want their hands in so many different things that they don't even care if it puts the businesses under. You know, they don't even care if the businesses fail to succeed anymore because of the things that they're implementing. It's like it doesn't even matter. Honestly, when I hear about these things, it sounds more like something that the mafia would do than a reasonable government that wants businesses to thrive and succeed, right? The mafia comes in and says, hey, you know, we're going to take an X percentage cut of your business each month, and if you don't pay us, we'll beat the hell out of you or even kill you if you stop paying us, you know? Instead, the government's doing the same thing, but instead of killing them or beating people up, they just put you out of business instead, which is kind of the same thing. They kill your livelihood, so how is it different? Here's one last thing I want to show you guys. As I'm walking through the neighborhood here, I've been seeing a lot of these signs since it's almost election season. Check this out. It says, yes on B, upgrade our local high schools. Then they got another one here that says, yes on E, quality education in Kentfield. So it's been proven already that these school districts fraudulently collect a ton of extra money from people's property taxes bills each and every year. And that's one of the main reasons that property taxes go up every year, is because of these school districts. You guys have heard me and other people discuss this with Mitch Wexler on YouTube about this exact issue. But then I ask, why would people want to vote to actually pay more money to the school systems? Like, the property taxes are already so high around this area, unless you bought a long time ago on the cheap and you have it locked in with Proposition 13. But if that's not you, you just bought over the last couple of years, your property tax bill is extremely high, going up every year, and they want more money. It never ends, guys. Nobody stops to think and ask, well, where did the money go that we're already paying for these school districts? What are they doing with all that money? No one asks that stuff. They just say, oh, let's just vote to give them more. And people are happy to do it. That's the crazy thing, in my opinion. Anyways, lots of crazy stuff happening in this world, completely upside down, and all we can do is just kind of watch in horror as everything kind of falls apart. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.